Good, hello, welcome back to Onion Skin. Today I'm going to be going back at that creature with many eyes and arms that was in the last video, and talk a little bit about how it was put together and the extra movements that you saw but weren't explained. I started off just sort of sketching a thing. I knew I wanted to have the ring of eyes with the teeth that would separate in the middle. It has two frames of the closed arms and then the open arms. Changed the direction here, didn't really like it facing down, so I changed it to facing up. And then on the second frame, had the arms completely open, lots of teeth in it. I wasn't really sure what the cannon was going to look like at first, so I thought about having different sort of spokes coming out of it, but then making them rotate would have been a pain. I couldn't be bothered doing that, so then also went for one where I had like this sort of like lightning rod in the middle. Lightning would have gone about. Again, then sort of cut my losses because I needed to get the video out. It had been a while. So just two states, just flat cannon there. Alright, next came all of these eyes. Drew all of these on a flat layer using the pencil tool, so they could be easily separated with the cutter later. Yep, they're all on one layer, and then putting the teeth, just sort of trying to get them to cross-section through the middle. They've got a bit of a curve to them. I could have done it with an actual circle and line tool, but really wanted to go for a freehand look, just to help it look a bit more organic rather than way too clinical. Once that flat drawing is complete, I've gone and duplicated that layer about 8 times, one representing each eye, and on each of those gone to the drawing view, so I'm just seeing one layer at a time, so I know for sure that I'm not going to accidentally edit the wrong one. And you can see I'm going through with the cutter tool and the selection tool, and deleting every eye except the one that I want, working clockwise, so I know I'm not going to accidentally miss one. Just getting rid of the eyes first, and then going through again, getting rid of the spacing of the teeth that I don't want, getting it right down so that it's just those spokey lines, and using the cutter tool and swiping through it to get rid of those, and circle selecting the straggly bits, leaving one eye with one teeth spoke each. From there, I wanted to make a way so that they could be pegged to open and close, sort of fan out from the middle. I spent a bit of time trying to figure out how to do it all with one universal peg. I'm certain that I've done it before, but I couldn't remember how to do it now, and I ended up spending quite a bit of time trying to figure it out. And eventually just sort of cut my losses and realized it would be much quicker to just do it manually and space each one out by hand. And in the end, that would actually allow me a lot more animation flexibility as well. Rather than just opening and closing always together by one central point, it means I could control them independently and have them sort of fan about or different things like that. Okay, you can see in the node view, I've connected all of the pegs into one. You can do this via the timeline as well. With a pivot point in the center of that, it means I can rotate the entire head mass in one chunk, which is pretty dang cool. Alright, I've made a few other layers. There's just going to be a body layer, drew one half, and then flipped the artwork to combine that together. I'm using the stroke tool, which is a pencil with a line thickness level of 0, but it is its own independent tool to connect the bottom and top. Didn't really have to do that because it's going to be in the background, but whatever. Made a few blank layers, just one at a time for the rear arm, the front arm, and then 3 separate layers for the center of the cannon, the top half of the arm, and the bottom half of the arm. And this main front bit of the arm is also its own layer, just because. Name all those appropriately so that they can be structured alright. You can see in the node view, everything's going through one central composite at the moment. That's a bit of a mess. I am going to turn this into a bit of a makeshift node rig. So different composites will go in to sort of group different components together, particularly when it comes to making the 2 sets of arms. So you can see there's a little cluster at the bottom at the moment. I just called bits. There's 4 bits of bits. They were going to be like sort of like fleshy organic masses, like sort of stretching between the 2 bits of the arm. But again, I was getting too ambitious for what is just a moot. Putting in teeth with the regular pencil tool again. You can see there's a single line going straight through all the teeth, and then I trimmed them away with the cutter tool. I'm going to use the stroke tool to round that off without having to use thick black outlines for all of it. Just using placeholder colors, using different swatches where I want it to be different tints. The inside of that fleshy bit is going to be a little bit darker. And when all of these sides are finished, I can sort of rig this up to be one complete arm and then duplicate and flip the entire thing with one big master peg, and it'll just also exist on the left. One of the more important things to do once each of these layers is set up is to maneuver their pivot point. So there's 4 layers for each of the lower arms, as I was saying before. The main one for when it's shut, and then 3 for when it's open. All of their pivot points are going to need to be in roughly a similar point, so they can all sort of rotate and spring in a particular way. But there'll be one peg that combines all of them together as well, so I can rotate all of it as a mass unit. And even as it goes from the transition between the closed version to the open version. This cannon here, yeah, I'm just sort of winging it, using the brush tool to create some like venting holes. You see those little cable that went in, but then I quickly got rid of it. Decided to make it the bone color, so maybe it's actually an organic cannon. Who knows? Oh, deep lore. This is a whole universe forming here. Yeah, gonna make the teeth the bone color as well, but they are still existing as their own separate swatch. Once all those layers have been combined into different composites, I've seen now that the layering is pretty wrong. At this point, I'm reorganizing each of the layers into their separate composite setups that I was explaining before. So there's 2 sets of arms. Those 3 on the left are for the lower arm section, and then the upper arm section on the right. They all have both their own little composites. They'll go into one composite at the bottom as well. Trying to figure out an appropriate peg structure. Normally, I vouch for only using pegs for any kind of animated movement. But again, this is sort of just Moot level. You know, I'm making the whole thing from start to finish in like an hour or less. So I give myself a little bit of leeway to just sort of botch it and animate straight on the drawing layer itself. And you can see the drawing layer is sort of daisy chaining into others so that it will peg displace and, you know, be able to move in a parented way. But I don't really see any need to take it further with deformers and being able to bend and warp stuff like that. So now the structure's set up, I've relayered the things so that that is appropriate. The strings that go into the composite, they dictate the actual layering of it. The further it is to the left, the higher up it'll be. You can see the timing at the moment is also very overlapped. The closed and the open version of the arms, they're both visible at the same time, so I'm going to have to trim away the beginning and trim away the end in certain parts. The animation for the head opening is now there. It hasn't got any easing or timing yet, it just sort of exists, but I need to give it a bit of a backing mouth, so just sort of a web shape, and double rim it, color that in, and that's going to stay synchronized with the head by simply scaling it, shrinking it up and smaller, because you can see that as the teeth shut, it's visible when it's closed. So there we go, close that in, and there we go. Because that inner mouth is also connected to the same main peg as the rest of the eyes, it will always rotate with the rest of it and sort of scale with it as well, so that is handy. I need arms that are behind the character as well. I hadn't really given much thought to the actual tutorial of making the bob movement. I don't want the arms to be out for the whole thing, so I've drawn in a new drawing state with the arms behind, and they're just a little sausage shape. They're going to appear just at the very beginning. And now I'm into the actual animation process. I accidentally didn't record a little bit of it, so you can see it's jumped to about halfway in. It's parented, so I can move the lower half of the arm and then moving the upper half of the arm. That will bring the lower half and all of its components with it. And I'm doing a lot of manual animation on just the upper and lower claw section, so they'll have a bit of a flop. They'll spring up and down, and that's done by, you know, putting in a keyframe, moving it up a little bit, going 2 keyframes later, moving a little bit lower than where it was before, and sort of just repeating that until, you know, making the movement a little bit less each time until it just sort of settles. And then displacing the timing. So there was very similar keyframes on the top half and the lower half, but then it just looks like they were moving as a solid piece. And then displacing a little bit and changing the timing so that one slowed down faster than the other. It gave it a bit more of a believable spring and gave the top half one a bit more weight, which was necessary because it's up higher. Yeah. Because all the animation took place on one of the arms, to get it onto the other one, I actually deleted the second arm completely and then recopied it and bolted it back in. Another peg on top that is mirrored, so that just automatically flips everything that's underneath it very nice and cleanly. But for the animation of it pulling the arms out, I grabbed all the keyframes and lowered the exposure just, I think, by 1 or 2. So that brings the entire thing just a little bit to the left, and then it's, you know, there's just a little bit of variety, so it's not 100% mirrored all the time, because that's a bit robotic. There's a whole keyframe on top of everything. You can see it's all, sorry, a peg on top of everything. All the lines are sort of tied together, and I'm just squash and stretching the entire unit. So just before the arms go up, I shrink it down and then widen it out just a little bit. And then on the very next keyframe, make it tall and shrink it in. I got a video on that. It's definitely one of the more popular ones. I think it's called Simple and Effective. It's got like a little stickman guy in the thumbnail, you know the one. Just using that technique, so then I can give the whole thing just a little bit of bounce, and I'll go through the whole everything. The actual eyes opening and the rotation of the head, that's just the super sharp S easing that I used in the main video before, so that kind of looks good. And there we go. That's the that's the animation done. That was fun to do. Took probably about 1 hour and 20 minutes in real time. So that's alright. It's very satisfying to get a whole, character built and moving in just one quick sitting like that. Makes you feel productive. Anyway, go have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.